ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's Mayday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Nigeria's capital Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasted on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Media owners in Senegal threaten legal action over government shutdown of dozens of outlets for non-compliance with media code.
It
is at the level of the courts and tribunals that a decision or sanction can be imposed, up to and including the closure of the media outlet in question. But in no case does this fall within the jurisdiction of the Minister of Communications. Therefore, we will file a lawsuit.
In Mali, the national consultation on political parties reconfiguration moves to phase 3. And back to Ivorian opposition, Tijan Cham's defense team demands his reinstatement on the electoral roll.
In what country are we, where the grandson of Felix Houphouët-Boigny cannot appear on the electoral roll of his own country, while this list includes millions of people who are illegally registered?
And in Ghana, protesters hit the streets of Accra to demand a quick fix to the illegal mining crisis. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to all of our listeners across the sub-region. Well, let's begin in Senegal here, where several media owners and voices have denounced the Ministry of Communications' decision to shut down several dozen media outlets. According to the ministry, after an assessment, the affected media organizations were found to be non-compliant with the press code. They now face sanctions if they continue to operate. Augustine Collier report.
In total, nearly 400 media outlets, most of them online sites, are affected by the Ministry of Communications' decision. This follows the ministry's assessment a few months ago of more than 600 media outlets operating in the country. The immediate halt of their activities, decided by the Minister of Communications, Ali Onsal, is contested by the Union of Information and Communication Professionals of Senegal. Mustafa Cissé is its president.
This can only be outraged by this, given that during the communications director's last evening, he had said that the list that had already been produced contained many errors and that he had to correct them later. We were expecting the correction, and unfortunately, to our greatest surprise, instead of this major correction, we received requests for a cessation of operations. We do not reject the idea of reforming the press, but there are prerequisites.
The Council of Press Broadcasters and Publishers of Senegal, CDEPS, goes further, announcing that it will take legal action against the Ministry of Communications' decision. Mamadou Ibra Khan is its president.
It is at the level of the courts and tribunals that a decision or sanction can be imposed, up to and including the closure of the media outlet in question. But in no case does this fall within the jurisdiction of the Minister of Communications. Therefore, we will file a lawsuit. We have a pool of lawyers who want to give themselves time to file an interim relief before the judge and an application for annulment before the Supreme Court, because these actions are illegal. Now, this does not mean that press employers are against regulating the media sector.
For its part, the West African Organization Article 19 calls on the Senegalese authorities to suspend this decision, which runs counter to its commitments to freedom of expression.
Augustine Collier filed that report. In Mali, the national phase of consultations with the nation's key stakeholders on the review of the political party charter continues this Tuesday. Several participants from different regions of the country are taking part in this process and are expected to discuss, among other things, the possible dissolution of political parties. At the end of the discussions, recommendations are expected to be made on new reforms and the creation of new political parties. Let's join Francis Boniface for the details.
For the national phase of these consultations, which is taking place in Bamako, 3 committees have been established. They are discussing reducing the number of political parties and banning political nomadism. However, the debate is dominated by the dissolution of political parties. Basoma Aminata Isabre is a women's representative from the Dunza region.
If there are more than 200 political parties, to avoid all this, the best solution will be to disband something and start from scratch. Because we don't want the situation, but we see that without aid, it can't work. So, to better restructure things, we still have to dissolve them first to better organize everyone.
For these civil society activists from the Senegal region, beyond the proposals of the political parties, the final decision rests with the transitional authorities.
It's up to them to truly make their own decisions. But when that doesn't matter, we are also here to contribute our ideas. When you ask one person, two people, what's your point of view on reducing political parties? Many people say that political parties should be eliminated altogether. We, as delegates, truly speak on behalf of the population. So, in reality, to avoid betraying them, we who were fortunate enough to participate in this national phase must also truly present their point of view.
At the end of the discussions this Tuesday afternoon, the participants' recommendations will be compiled and then forwarded to the authorities. It should be noted that the political parties have boycotted these national consultations, which they believe are aimed solely at dissolving them.
That was a report by WDL's Ali Cham in Bamako and presented by Francis Boniface.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Côte d'Ivoire, the legal battle over Tijan Cham's nationality has begun. Recall the PDCI candidate who declared himself a candidate for the presidential election next October has been removed from the electoral roll due to a nationality issue. However, in a statement released on Monday, the court confirmed that Tijan Cham is indisputably Ivorian, but was not at the time of his registration on the electoral roll due to his French nationality. In the aftermath, Tijan Cham's lawyers held a press conference to challenge and demand his reinstatement on the electoral roll. Christopher Teacher completes the story.
The Director of Civil and Criminal Affairs at the Ministry of Justice declared that Tijani Cham is indeed Ivorian, as his father, born in Senegal, subsequently acquired Ivorian nationality, and his mother is an Ivorian. Furthermore, regarding the reason for his removal from the provisional electoral roll, Augustin Kwame Yao stated that when he registered in November 2024, he had not yet renounced his allegiance to the French state due to his French nationality. Soon afterwards, lawyers for the Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire, of which Tijani Cham is the president, held a press conference. According to them, Tijani inherited French nationality from his father and had never applied for it. He therefore cannot be punished under the Ivorian Nationality Code, they continued. The PDCI denounces a plot aimed at removing Tijani Cham from the presidential race. Bleidume Sumaila is spokesperson for the PDCI.
In what country are we, where the grandson of Felix Houphouët-Boigny cannot appear on the electoral roll of his own country, while this list includes millions of people who are illegally registered?
6 months before the presidential election, like Tijani Cham, several other major opposition candidates have been removed from the electoral list, this time due to convictions by the Ivorian courts, which they have always contested.
Marcel Ariston Blair's report there, voiced by Christopher Aticho. Meanwhile, arrests and silencing of individuals critical of the current Beninese government reached a new height this week, with the former police chief now behind bars. Louis Philippe Hudegnon has been on trial for several months before the court for the suppression of economic offences and terrorism. The trial climaxed on Monday after the state prosecutor requested that Hudegnon be served a 2-year jail term. Prosecuted for incitement to rebellion and harassment through a communication system, Hudegnon has constantly criticized the Beninese head of state. Sankli Janko has more details in this report.
In addition to the 2-year prison sentence requested for Louis Philippe Hudegnon, the prosecution is also demanding that the accused pay a fine of 2 million CFA francs. The prosecutor criticized the former police director general for his numerous incriminating statements against the current government. These media appearances are risky given that as a former police officer, he has a duty of confidentiality, the prosecutor continued. The prosecution also accuses the former police chief of having disclosed that he had been repeatedly asked to participate in a coup d'etat against the government. Making this known to the public seriously affected the public's peace of mind, the prosecutor stated. He continued that the former police director general challenged the constitution by calling on the population to rise up against the state. The public prosecutor also revealed that numerous placards with malicious comments against the head of state were found at Philip Undenyong's home during the search. While the former police chief indicated that he and others were planning to launch a political movement, the public prosecutor's office believed he was more interested in identifying police, customs and other military personnel for reasons that remain unclear.
WDL's Aziz Adam Sule filed the report and voiced by Sankle Janko. Well, staying in Benin, the government has clarified the law on traditional chiefdoms, which was adopted in March this year. A statement issued by the government states authorities have, through the adopted law, formalized the recognition of 16 kingdoms, 80 superior chiefdoms, and 10 customary chiefdoms. The legal framework aims to anchor traditional chiefdoms in the national dynamic. This comes following the misunderstanding raised by this new text, which aims to redefine the role of traditional authorities in building a modern Benin. While providing clarifications on the law, the government states the recognition of traditional entities is based on three main criteria, namely territorial-based type of power exercise and the existence of a hierarchical social organization. Now let's take you to Nigeria, where the Labour Congress NLC is set to mark this year's Workers' Day, May 1, in Rivers State with a rally calling for the restoration of democratic governance. This comes amid growing concerns over the state of emergency declared in the oil-rich state. Meanwhile, in Edo State, Labour leaders are accusing the state government of interfering in union activities. WDL's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports.
The Nigeria Labour Congress has directed its Rivers State Council to hold a peaceful rally on May 1st to commemorate Workers' Day. In a letter dated April 22nd and signed by Deputy General Secretary Comrade Ismail Bello, the NLC leadership said the rally would take place within the council's premises and involve all affiliate unions. The Congress stressed that the event should not be celebratory but a sober reflection on the subversion of democratic governance in Rivers State. Responding to this development, a public affairs analyst, Nosa Osas, is urging labor unions to focus on workers' welfare and avoid entangling themselves in political disputes, particularly in volatile states like Rivers.
Labor unions should concentrate on their unionism and also know when it is apt to play that union activism and not bringing it to politics. If the workers are not paid, because this sole administrators have made concerted effort to make sure that there is a payment of salaries and emoluments as at when due. And you could see that in Rivers State here, we've not had any hula balu cry from the workers.
Meanwhile, in neighboring Edo State, the NLC has accused the state government of interfering in the activities of the State Council, raising fresh concerns about the independence of labor unions across Nigeria. This year's theme, Reclaiming the Civic Space Amid Economic Hardship, will be observed nationwide, but in Rivers State, the NLC says there is a pressing need to rebuild civic structures and defend workers' rights. On March 18, 2025, President Bola Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State after enduring extended political unrest. This declaration resulted in the suspension of the governor, his deputy, and the state lawmakers as he appointed a sole administrator to manage state affairs for an initial 6-month term. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Media owners in Senegal threaten legal action over government's shutdown of dozens of outlets for non-compliance with media code. In Mali, the national consultation on political parties reconfiguration moves to phase 3. And Ivorian opposition Teaching Champs defense team demands his reinstatement on the electoral roll. And still ahead in the news, in Ghana, protesters hit the streets of Accra to demand a quick fix to the illegal mining crisis. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and fuller live streams on YouTube and Facebook. Let's take you to Ghana, where members of the Generational Rights Protection Society, an anti-Galamsey advocacy group, have staged a protest in Accra, the nation's capital. They aim to pile pressure on the government to take stronger action against illegal mining, commonly known as Galamsey. Monday's protest saw demonstrators expressing frustration over what they described as government's weak response to the environmental damage. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Detete report.
The protest had faced a last-minute challenge after the Greater Accra Regional Police Command filed an injunction to halt the event. The command cited security concerns and the use of restricted areas. But the Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Justice Rimsai, on April 25 confirmed that the application had been withdrawn following consultation with security agencies allowing the demonstration to proceed as planned. Protesters dressed in red and black gathered at the Obra Sport at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle and marched towards the Jubilee House, holding placards with messages such as "Stop Galamsey Now" and "Blood, Gold, Greed."
Because of our water bodies, we are spoiling them too much. Again, all our waters are spoiled, so we have to stop Galamsey.
John Dramani Mahama, to tell him to put a stop to Galamsey now, before it's too late. Because Galamsey, day by day, it is becoming a national threat to all citizenry. If not for today, but in the future. And we are all seeing it now. We are seeing the effect. Our water bodies are being polluted day in, day out. And if things are not taken seriously, in the near future, we will have to import water from neighboring countries before we can survive. So we are here today to tell the president to act swiftly now to stop Galamsey in order for us to be safe in the near future.
Convener of the group, Oketechi Frifa Mensa, said the effects of illegal mining are becoming more deadly and urged the government to act with urgency. For WDR, Nadi Tete, Accra.
The Liberia Poultry Federation has raised concerns about the lack of transparency in the policies governing its institution over the years. The federation encompasses various stakeholders in the poultry sector, including hatchery operators, poultry farmers, feed processors, and veterinarians. The Poultry Federation held its first stakeholders consultative meeting in Monrovia to review and validate a crucial policy document first drafted in 2018. During the two-day consultative, Federation President Joseph Kule explained that the existing document requires significant amendment.
The Liberian poultry policy that was crafted in 2018 by FAO, USAID, and the Ministry of Agriculture. Government now is about to validate this document. So we as stakeholders of the poultry sector, we don't know what is in that document. We don't know what is good there for us. We don't know what is not good for us in that document. We also can make our recommendations to the government. This document was crafted by FAO, USAID, and the Ministry of Agriculture. And if you ask me, they did their best, especially FAO and USAID. But do they need it? No. We are the ones that need that document because it was crafted for us. And we are the ones that are either going to benefit in that document or we are going to be victims of that document. So with the ministry, since 2018, it been there, they just left it on the shelves. So we as an organization to engage the government to make sure that the document is validated, to tell the government what we think to be in that document. So all the groupings are on the Federation.
Joseph Kule, the president of Liberia Poultry Federation.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we'll stay in Liberia as we join Abraham Parker for the press review.
from Monrovia. Hello and welcome to Press Review. We begin with the front page Africa newspaper. Counting crisis, majority blocks press conference. Highlights by math mistakes and confusion. Well, it centers around the ongoing impasse at the House of Representatives. Yesterday, the majority bloc came out to say that they've again obtained 49 members, stating another resolution to remove Fonati Kofa. And when a counter check was done, they had 31 lawmakers instead of 49. Still on front page Africa, reshaping Liberia's economic future. A glance at ArcelorMittal Liberia's $800 million bold investment in real infrastructure. We move to the Heritage newspaper. No time for ghost lawmakers. Government will press on with Quorum. U.S. Ambassador hails Liberia's World and Economic Crimes Office. UP Alliance rallies behind Boaka. Blinds the opposition chaos threats. The Daily Observer is up next with these stories. Majority bloc members on U.S. government's radar? Well, the paper is saying that the self-styled majority bloc ignores U.S. warning to avoid dealing with sanctioned lawyer Conservative chairman, and they are predicting a potential sanctions amid political and legal turmoil in Liberia. Rights Goose warned War Crime Code Office mandate renewed. And our last stop is the Variety newspaper with these headlines. Armed Forces of Liberia receives the Chief of Logistics of U.S. Africa Command. And travel bonanza. Labor Minister allegedly inflates cost of foreign trip. Well, that does it for today's edition of Press Review. It's back to you in studio, and thanks for listening.
And many thanks, Abraham Parker there with the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Well, in this segment of the news, we take you back to the latest development in the media sector here in Senegal as human rights organization. Article 19 has urged authorities to refrain from the closure of non-compliant media houses. This comes after several media owners and voices denounced the Ministry of Communications' decision to shut down several dozen media outlets. According to the ministry, after an assessment, the affected media organizations were found to be non-compliant with the press code. They now face sanctions if they continue to operate. However, Article 19 argued the closure of these media houses will prevent millions of Senegalese from access to information. Alfred Boukale is the regional director of Article 19, Senegal and West Africa.
We understand the importance of media to respect their administrative obligations and to comply with the different requirements. At the same time, we want to emphasize that the objective of any regulation process should ensure that the right of the public to access the information is protected through any measure taken. This decree, if it was applied as it states, meaning that media that do not comply with the requirements stop the service of informing people, you understand that this right won't be protected, and millions of people who use those media to access their information, unfortunately, could not. That's why we are insisting that the decree is very severe and put on risk the right of the public to access information.
But the government's argument is that they've told these media outlets to regulate the press code of Senegal, and some of them have been given time, and now they've disqualified and they're asked not to operate because they failed to meet the standards.
We understand that, and as we are saying, media should comply with the requirements. But again, as is said in the principles on freedom of expression and access to information, in Africa, the process of registration of media should serve for administrative objectives and not lead to restriction. We are understanding through this decree that unfortunately those who could not comply, they will be restricted from continuing their business. So you can understand that there is a conflict between this decision and this principle that should govern the process of regulation and administrative registration of.
Certain media houses have threatened to take legal action against the government. Would Article 19 support this action?
Let me say that what is important to look at now is what kind of positive measures ensure to safeguard public information, public right to information, and also protect the plurality and the diversity of media. We are calling for the government, and we think that is still possible, to refrain from executing this decree, and instead to adopt positive measures that can include a deep analysis of the press code and undertaking a global reform of this press code to make sure these disposals, that if they are used, they affect the right of public to information.
That was Alfred Bukali, the Regional Director of Article 19, Senegal and West Africa. And in the sport news, Thankfully Janko joins us in the studio, and the Champions League are back, thankfully.
Yes, indeed, the Champions Leagues are back, and quite interesting fixture tonight. But before that, let's begin things kick-start off here in Africa, because host nation Morocco secured their spot in the final of the 2025 Women's Futsal Africa Cup of Nations after beating Angola 5-1 at the Prince Moulay Abdallah Stadium in Morocco on Monday. The Lionesses of Atlas produced another dazzling attacking display to secure their spot at the first ever FIFA Women's World Futsal World Cup in the Philippines later this year. Elsewhere, Tanzania will take on Morocco in the final after booking their place into the last two. The Tanzanians secured their spot following a dramatic 3-2 win over Cameroon. The victory also guaranteed their qualification for the upcoming FIFA Women's Futsal World Cup. And now, talking about the Champions League that you've mentioned, UEFA Champions League, of course, all road leads to London, as Arsenal set to host Paris Saint-Germain in the UEFA Champions League semi-final tonight. Arsenal secured their semi-final berth after impressively defeating Real Madrid as defending champions 5-1 on aggregate. Meanwhile, the French champions PSG reached the last four following their narrow 5-4 aggregate win against Aston Villa. Mind you, Arsenal have already beaten PSG this year in the UEFA Champions League group stages. But that doesn't guarantee.
Well, the bettings will fly now because with the way Arsenal is and
particularly the way they perform against Real Madrid.
Exactly. So
everybody's betting their money on
Arsenal.
So
we are giving you the secret now in case you want to bet. So you put it on Arsenal.
But I'm sure those who are very, very good on betting, those who are good, they always go against the odds. They'll rightly go for Paris Saint-Germain.
Well, let's wait and see. It may turn out to be the other way.
But I don't think so. I mean, Arsenal is playing PSG at home with the form that they are in after beating Real Madrid. I mean, everything is pointing towards them. But it's football. You can never tell anything.
Indeed, you can have all fingers crossed.
All fingers crossed. But it promised to be an amazing game of football.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sport news. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our team of technicians for the technical support. Well, do interact with us on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, @WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.
Les Bissau-Guinéens se rendent